Nadia Riley. Welcome to the Neuroarchitect.
Thank you, Maria. It's my pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Please tell us more about your career path and the motivations behind your focus on architecture for animals.
So everything started at university, where when we were given to choose for a project to do, it was either, I don't know, a school or a hospital. I would go and beg for veterinary architecture because I didn't find myself designing for people, regular architecture. And I finished my university with a quarantine center and a hospital for hoofed animals as a diploma. And soon after that, things just went into motion. And I found myself in a zoo design conference here in Poland. And then many other conferences followed. So I made connections. I worked on my network. And the first, let's say, approach to architecture for animals was a tender for a gorilla habitat here in Poland, in a zoo in the south of the country. So I didn't win that tender, but for architects, winning a tender, it's not always the benefit. It did open many doors to that field. And soon after, people started to call in clients, investors. And I've been designing gorilla habitats for the last 8 years. But not only, I work with a variety of institutions, companies, ONGs, private initiatives all around the world, designing amazing architecture for animals. And so 8 years later, I'm here with you sharing this story for the first time.
Wow. So you started, the first time you had this passion was 8 years ago. And then you thought that...
Well, 8 years ago, I have founded my company. I have registered Haskoba. And yes, but the idea of animal architecture came a couple of years before, during university. So let's say maybe a decade now.
So what does Haskova mean?
It's a good one. So everyone asks me the same question. The word, it's a combination of just three different, it's a combination of words, of letters. It doesn't have any meaning apart of, we can say, a family meaning for me, a personal meaning for me.
Okay. How important is it to design for animals' well-being? And how does this affect our well-being and the spirit around the built environment?
Yeah. So I will answer to that question from another angle. So we live on a planet, the planet Earth, and science, it's confirming that the planet in itself, it's a live being. So if we see it from a bigger picture, that us little humans are living on that bigger organism, the same way as we've got skin, and on our skin, we've got different layers of, live beings. It's the same with the planet. So if we living on a live being, we're part of a network. It's all interconnected. So we're not separate. We cannot polarize anymore, So us humans, animals, the plants, everything, it's a network. So if you want to have a healthy body, you have to have the state of homeostasis. The same comes to the planet Earth. And right now we're living in times when the planet, it's not in homeostasis. So I believe that if we start focusing on that well-being of the animals, of the plants, of that whole ecosystem where we living, it's going to influence us. And so everything comes, we've been treating things so separately. So for me, animal well-being, it's not optional. It's just fundamental for us humans to also live with that, happiness and peace and have good lives on a beautiful planet where we're living.
So as a human,
and also, it's important to understand the animal world in the context of, I see two groups. One group of the animal kingdom, it's our pets or animals that are under human care. So they have to be provided with shelters or architecture or some kind of infrastructure. But then we have the animals which are wild. But then many of them, they live in urban areas, but they're still wild. And what kind of opportunities and life we provide them in our cities. So, like, the concept of animal well-being, it's just so broad because it's focusing on nature, it's focusing on what we have at homes. But then let's not forget the animals from the industry. How do we treat them? How do they live? How do they, that we consume meat? So what is the procedure in the farms, in the slaughterhouses? How that affects the quality of the food we eat? Without mentioning if eating meat is correct or not. This is something which I don't want to discuss. But the fact is that we are farming animals in a way that is absolutely unthinkable, and then we're eating this meat.
So here we are not talking about just a cool topic to be to show that we are just being cool about this lifestyle. We are talking about a serious matter of the concept of life, because as humans we used to live in constant contact with nature, and when we decided to separate not long ago, we started longing, as the primitive brain that we have started longing again for nature without knowing what's missing. So when we get stressed, when we have this overweight issues, when we have these illnesses that are coming out of nowhere, this is because of our cut of contact with nature. And when we see also that plants can have cancers and that animals can have PTSD or also other types of cancers, we can understand that we are harming also not only ourselves, we are also interfering in the other types of nature that exist in this life.
Exactly. The whole planet, the whole living system.
And
Exactly.
actually, my decision to have this kind of topic discussed and broadcasted is because I saw in the explosion in the Beirut port blast in 2020, how many pets developed PTSD and how they were reacting with the flight every time they hear motorcycles or doors or any kind of noise that is sudden, or seeing spaces that are like a surprise, that are not like defined corners or a defined, road. There are some surprises on the side, let's say, which are access of other roads. They were getting scared, and some of them died after this. So really, it's not a joke. Like, if us as humans, we are trying to find solutions for it, but the animals don't have the consciousness that we have to find solutions, to meet together and try to find a solution.
Yeah.
So since we initiated this kind of problem, we have to try to find a solution for it.
I do agree with you, and something which a thought which really strikes me is when I think about situations like you're mentioning, it's the irony of this is that the animals, either it's our home pets or it's the wildlife, it doesn't matter, the animal kingdom, it's damaged and it's traumatized by humans. Just by us. And then the same human which has traumatized those animals, it's trying to help them. I mean, isn't that ironic? Because when we speak about wildlife, wild animals, a zebra, she might be chased by a lion during a week, 5 times. That's a huge trauma for her. But because this is nature and this is how this works, animals, they have a natural way of neutralizing the nervous system with the earth. So they able to kind of shake off that trauma by connecting with the electromagnetic field of the earth. So that zebra, which hasn't been eaten by the lion, but has been chased, she's not carrying on that trauma for the next 20 years as us humans. So if we leave nature as it is, everything works fine. But then whenever the human interaction comes in, then we have animals with PTSD, and we still don't know what to do with that animal to help him regulate in the natural way. And that doesn't mean we don't love our dogs, our cats. Obviously, the owners, they love them, but they don't have even the knowledge. I think that the problem here, Maria, it's a lot about education. And it's something which surprised me as an architect, because I thought it would be, my life and my career would be more about design, and I wouldn't be on that academic side. And it turns out that actually that academic side, it's vital right now, because in the times we living in history, in our civilization, it's the education that can save us.
And the awareness to spread this kind of knowledge. As you said, they don't know that they are harming their pets at some point. And they don't put the animal word in contact for them to communicate what they do usually to survive. So this shaking, actually, you said they shake it off. And when I give workshops and lectures, but mainly workshops about PTSD for humans, I tell them to do this exercise, to shake it off, because it helps a lot. And speaking also about the smart way nature deals with problems, like when we have, for example, wildfires that the humans sometimes intentionally do, either like for political reasons, or to construct, or to sell the land, or whatever, or sometimes naturally. You see how it's reborn from the ashes. So the nature uses the ashes and the components of nature, like the wind, like the shadows, lights, everything that nature can use to reconstruct itself. It's such a smart system that we tried to get detached of it, because we thought at some point, no, it's not a smart system. Let's try to do the smart. And the smart
would be clever.
The smart got confused with technology. So yeah, it's smart to discover, about technology. But what about going back to what is nature and the past also? When I tell them, for example, to look at ancient architecture and to learn instead of trying to figure out new things, what about looking at nature, how it works, and try to figure out the things? Also about the fractals that are very important for us to feel at ease when we look at them. The movement of the leaves and all this.
I think it just wasn't popular, and neuroarchitecture and neuroscience really addresses this very well and explains, historically what happened and how it worked. So I think it's something that everyone should understand. But something interesting that came to my mind when you were mentioning this is Chernobyl. Everyone knows what happened there. And then I read an article many years ago, so I cannot really tell you exactly the data, but I remember reading it and being just so amazed, because that area where the explosion was, it was an area where no human went because of the radioactivity. So it was really left alone without human interaction, and no one wanted to go there. And then nature took over. And then after years and years, when people start going to that area and seeing what nature did, they were so amazed because nature didn't mind what happened there because it knew how to deal with it. And there were like great population of, I think, brown bears and wolves and, like all that ecosystem starting to run again without human intervention because no human wanted to be there. How amazing it's that. So yeah, let's control humans.
Even, for the younger generations who weren't born during Chernobyl when it occurred, um, COVID, just
Yeah.
like after like a week or so, you started seeing animals on the street, started, having these changes in the climate. But what can we do? Because, humans want to keep on building also. So we have now this kind of lifestyle. We have cities. We cannot just say, okay, we're going to destroy everything and get back to another type of life. So what can we do first of all for animals? If we want to build, what did you find in your, throughout your, experience, like a professional experience?
I think that, so my opinion, it's I neither go to one extreme or the other one. I consider that as a species on this planet, we have done a lot. We've got a beautiful brain. We've got a beautiful mind. We have many ideas. We're great. So let's not take that, achievement as a civilization from us. We should enjoy it. So, and we need infrastructure. We like good lives and we like easy lives and, all the commodities and so on. But I think that we got a little bit lost in that spectrum of what we can create by artificially creating certain things, and not seeing that we don't have to create artificial things if we look into nature and we just bring that nature in. So, it sometimes I just laugh because there is this, trend of making interiors natural and, all the biophilia and biophilic and this and that. And sometimes I look at those images of those spaces and they just look natural, but they're not natural. They don't have natural elements in them. They've got produced mechanically things that look natural. So why don't people go to the forest and just pick up branches and pick up stuff and bring that into your house? If you've got animals, your animal's gonna love it. I go for my walks in nature and I bring stuff. Like I literally find things and I'm like, oh, nature gave me this. I bring it in. My animals love it. My cats love it because they can smell it. So, we don't have to go into high-tech things to make things work. And it's just if we humans, we realize that connection to nature, it's so important. And that our body, we build of so many layers. We are such a dense construct. And we're addressing just certain aspects of our construct by having a healthy diet, by going and making sport. But how many ladies, they acknowledge and consider their hormonal system in their life? How many ladies, let's go into architects and designers because we're working in this field, they adjust their work routine to their hormonal system? That hasn't been spoken. It's something which we're not even allowed to speak as women. So going back, because I have that tendency to, grow a question very big, but, let's enjoy what our civilization has produced, but let's kind of lower it in the rank and not forget, that nature aspect. And super easy things we can do. Go into nature, have a walk, forest bathe, be in nature for 1 hour. You just inhale them. fill your house with plants. That's another one. And so music, it's just so many things. And architecture blends into it because that's the space that physical construct is at, and our neurological system, and how our brain feels safe or unsafe in that place. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but
Yeah, but you mentioned a very important point now about humans, how now they started like to divide the human as if like in categorizing in technical parts, the hand, the foot, the eye, the brain. Whereas, for example, many people don't know that the jaw can affect the respiratory system, can affect the pelvis, the way of breathing can affect your level of anxiety. So there are parts that are not logically to this word, like this period connected, but in reality, it's all connected. So just if you understand that there is a kind of connection to the whole human, it's a whole, then we can project this because we tend to project the self to what's in front of us, and we can see what is in front of us as a whole as well, that we cannot divide. So mentioning this also, you were talking about the academic field. What is your opinion about the kind of research for sustainability?
I think it's evolving. I think we've made a great progress. When I go back in my mind 10 years ago, what was available in the market, what was there? What kind of content was there? We obviously had in the animal world, the scientific and biology research. So yes, on animal data, there is a lot, and that has been going, quite full blast. But there was no talk about healthy or unhealthy architecture. There was no talk on how this, affects us. It's a new science as well. So as far as I'm concerned, neuroarchitecture, it's something like 20 years around that. But anyway,
As
10 years ago.
As the term of
Yeah,
neuroarchitecture, many architects and experts were doing some kind of experiments before the 60s, or even we're talking about ancient times even.
Exactly. But into our society as a definition, it's, as you say, it's been around 20 years. So only now I'm seeing in the field of design and architecture in general that, and a part of neuroarchitecture, there are people which are noticing, we have to change the way we design and, just treat the interiors in a different way. To be honest, in animal architecture, there is no talk about this. There is, a big emphasis on providing the animals with welfare, with, biological aspects, psychological and so on. But no one has spoken about, the shapes, the way we build, what we build, how we build, how that will affect the animal and the visitor. And if really the zoological garden, it's fulfilling the mission it should fulfill in the 21st century. Because we don't need any more menageries to show, we're so powerful. We've got lions, that was good in Mesopotamia, but not now. Many people ask me a question, why do I design zoological gardens? How do I feel with this? And for me, it's such a random question because right now we don't have that need. So what are zoos in our society? What is that? And, it's such a controversial question, and I love it because people, they have such a fixated idea on certain things, but they don't understand the broad picture. And if you ask me, I think zoos and those where we keep animals under human care, they would be fabulous as a tool to connect people to nature.
Mm.
So people can go there, visitors can go there, but not in the aspect they're doing now, going family trip, showing animals to children, having a hamburger, buying a balloon, and going back home.
Or even the way they are kept sometimes in some countries. It's like torture. You are looking at a living creature. So you cannot just put it in torture and tell people to go look at it. What are they looking at? What are the children looking at? That it's okay to see an animal in pain. And as we're saying, it's not bad to have a zoo. It's not bad to eat if you want to eat in a certain way with certain standards. So we're not having this movement now of don't touch and don't eat and don't do, but there's a certain reframing. There must be a certain reframing for it.
Exactly. Perfect word, reframing. And I think that zoos should change the name, the definition, that should go into the past. And we should be creating different types of parks. And these parks should be helping humans to connect to nature and understand nature and provide safe environment where we can go back into that natural memory which we have. Because another thing which I wanted to mention is that there is a big boom now on, personal development and spiritual development and, let's meditate, let's make yoga, let's make pranayamas. There are so many techniques. And I think people get also overwhelmed by the amount of techniques, schools, kind of gurus, and we're trying to do this. And if you do that, and now go into meditation and go into doing something else and this practice and that practice. And in the end, if we go back in time, our ancestors, they didn't have practices. They didn't have to meditate to have that, homeostasis in their construct. So this is something as well which I want to promote through my architecture and those parks and gardens, is that just don't do anything. Just go and take in what you can take in, the beauty, the sounds, the movements, the leaves, what you are speaking, just be. And don't think you have to sit in a certain position for your nervous system to do the work, so.
Now when it comes to the word zoo, we know it's zoo means the animal in Greek. And it has been linked to investment, to invest in animals, whereas the term is just animals. So maybe, as you said, maybe there must be a change in the term just for people to be more aware of what they're doing there.
Yeah. I think we should. I think we should cut that. Actually, cut that past out and draw a line and say, until now we had that history of zoological gardens. They were called this way. They were managed this way. It was their role, but now we're transforming them. And it should be something completely different to show the new generations that this is not, an archaic thing that we're dragging behind us. Because in the end, it's funny.
And even when you were mentioning also meditation, people did some kind of meditation that is connected to their prayers based on its religion. So this was something related to the connection with our God. But now it's becoming like the trend to track it and to use it as an achievement. Look what I did. And this actually doesn't make you feel better. It stresses you more because you didn't do your 10,000 steps. You didn't meditate using, the position exactly.
Yes.
You didn't
at 5 o'clock in the morning. Yes.
Yeah, the 5 o'clock. Maybe your biological clock is not for the 5. Maybe you are the different type. And even for women, as you mentioned, also it's a different cycle.
Exactly. You're hitting this.
And you need to sit with yourself and not just follow a trend. And these trends also for the animals. That's why I would like to ask you, like, if someone comes to you, and I believe many people are interested in this episode to know, if someone comes to you and tells you, I want to build something for my pet that makes my pet enjoy moments or feel safe or just be connected with the real nature that they were born to live in, what would you design?
Okay, so it's a great question. I love it. It really, because that field, that niche I'm working in, a part of being a niche, it's very broad in itself. So here we speak about each time, every project, it's different animal, different species, different needs. So, there are different categories of the projects. And when we're speaking about house animals, so dogs and cats, because that will be the most popular, there are many things which you can do on a household level that would elevate that welfare of that animal. See, animals are such a great teachers, because if you do something for your animal because you love it, see if you're doing the same thing for you, or you're not doing the same thing for you. So first of all, it's the diet. What do you feed your animals? It has nothing to do with architecture, but this is the base. So the diet, the patterns of the walk. Where do you walk your dogs? What variety of stimuli your dog it's receiving? Is your dog walking on a leash or without a leash? I have a dog, and I've got a very big dog, and I live in a city, and my dog walks without a leash. I had never a problem. I'm not saying this is a solution for every dog. We have standardized our pets. There are certain things that, protocols we have to do this way. Again, it's what you were saying. If you're meditating at 5:00 in the morning in this position, is it better that if I do it at 1:00 at night, because that's my system? That's my biology. So the same with pets. You have to have your own, thinking process. Know your animal. Don't just take a manual and say, oh, cats do this, so I have to do that. So it's the diet, it's that exposure to stimuli which you give them. As I say, why don't you bring branches from a walk and give it to your cats to smell? It's also the materials they surrounded with. So what kind of bedding they sleep on, how many natural materials you have in your house, and how many synthetic. So is your dog bed made out of polyester? That's what he breathes. That's what's on his fur. It's microplastic. In terms also of health, as a owner of a big dog, I would say, and here where architecture comes in, or maybe let's say not architecture, but design, it's what is your physical condition of your animals? Are they exercising? Are they exposed to the maximum potential of that animal? Because not every animal has the same physical needs. I've got 3 cats, and I can see the differences. And each cat has to be addressed for its own needs. And when it comes to dogs, especially because that's the species we walk, I find I'm missing in cities dog parks where I would have installations that I could train my dog and rehabilitate my dog. Because he has to do certain movements, he has to do certain physical exercise to strengthen his muscles and his hips. So obviously we go to a rehab once a week, but I would love to have a park in my district where I could go and have platforms and could train my dog. Nothing expensive, easy to build, just someone needs to know what they're doing. And that could be a municipal initiative. And for animals which have suffered PTSD, like in Beirut, parks like this would be perfect to help them regulate, because it's the routine, it's the safeness, it's the same place that calms your nervous system. And it's the physical exercise that will neutralize the animals. If your dog gets nervous, you have to go out with him. Give him things to sniff. Sniffing will calm him down. So you see, this is an aspect for animals, house animals. Obviously, later on, cats, if you have cats in your house, you have to provide them with different routes. You know, they like to be above, but not every cat. I've got one cat which hates to be on a high level. He's a floor cat. Well, I don't build him shelves. My other cats use the shelves. So you also need to know a little bit more about your animal. Just, you know, I've got a cat. It's nice and it's fairy.
So if a client comes to you, you study the pet they have before telling them what to do, what kind of maybe configuration of items to put and to install. This is what you do. So how long does it take you to understand the animal?
Well, it really depends on the animal and also on the owner and how conscious they are. Because if they know their animal, it's much easier. If they're not conscious owners, they just have a dog and they're wondering why their dog it's not happy, you know, but they feed it and they walk it. You know, it's a longer process because you're not really working with the animal at the moment. What you have to do is to break through the person, through the owner. And that's in terms of design and architecture, let's say for pets. But later on, if we take it out of our houses, again, we've got horses. Everywhere around the world, we've been keeping horses in stables. And horses have been having issues for decades. Anyway, the horse world, it's so, you know, not looked by humans. And the horse industry, it's terrific what happens there. And people don't know it. But anyway.
So even if the horses are treated well by their owners, like the owner really loves their horses, do you think that there is something always missing for them?
Yes, because in most of the cases, because horses are kept in public stables. So obviously there are owners which they have their own horse on their own property. But how many of them? So the majority, if you have a horse, you're going to pay a stand in a stable and they're going to look after your animals. And they maybe have 20 horses. And they've got employees which work with the animals, but, you know, it's an employee. It's not the owner. What consciousness has that employee? And you're not there 24 hours to see what's happening to your animal. So a beautiful thing which can be done for horses worldwide, it's to introduce paddock paradise system. And it's this great, you know, and people think that this requires money. It doesn't require a big investment. It requires a different way of thinking. So a paddock paradise just provides the horses with a circuit in the land, which will give them different stations and different stimuli in the different habitats. And, you know, so they can take the care of their hoofs in a natural way. They go to the toilet in a certain place. The bacteria's there. They manage, you know, it's a whole system. Horses are much happier and healthier. Time to introduce that.
So we have to take care of all the components that are the visible, like the shapes and the structure, and the invisible, which is how we're dealing with the thermal comfort, how we're dealing with the air pollution, how with the water, and all these components that we don't think about first when we say we want to design.
But it's also EMF. So I find that people are not very familiar with this. And ironically, they don't believe it. And it makes me laugh because they do understand that having a cell phone, you can use internet on your cell phone. So that is not strange for us, right? But it is strange when we say that that cell phone affects your energy system. Now they're not getting that. So the transmission of data, it's acknowledged between devices, but the transmission of data between human and device, it's not acknowledged. How about that?
Yeah. What about cities that we can see or categorize as overcrowded? So it's full of buildings. The streets are narrow, overpopulation. Sometimes it's less than even they don't have the normal personal space that we need in some areas or neighborhood. But some of these people want to have pets, so we cannot tell them don't have any pet in your house. What can they do for them? You were mentioning parks and all, but there are even some municipalities that don't even care for the human, the population there. So they don't care about anything. They don't even have parks for humans. They don't even have rehab centers for humans. They will not build, definitely these places will not build anything for the animals. So what can the owners do as on a personal level for the pets they have to have the types of exercises or anything to feel comfortable at home or maybe on their balconies or terraces or private gardens? Like simple tricks maybe or tips for them to just like, to manage to do something.
So, so let's put it straight. Animals, they feel good in nature. So that's their natural way of living. But we have them at houses. So that's already the starting point. It's a little bit like, okay, what we do now, because they have to be in a house. So now that you have the animal in the house, how you can stimulate it in that environment. And again, it's through nature. So bring stuff from outside to your house, because animals, they've got a very powerful olfactory sense. They have to smell. That regulates them. So if you live in a city, make an effort, organize yourself. I don't know how. Just go outside the city, into nature, into a park. Take your dog. If you have cats, bring something for the cat. Why don't you bring some pure earth? Like go and dig some earth and bring it in a bucket for your cats or even for your dog to smell it. They might ignore it. You might think, but they're not enjoying it. They're not doing anything. Well, you don't know. You're not observing them 24 hours. You don't know what they're doing at night. So bring that in. Let them smell. The animals, they need to have physical contact with pure earth. That's called geophagy. And that's being proven that animals, they digest earth because it has minerals. So they have to have contact. I've seen countless owners which doesn't allow their dogs to roll in the ground, in the sand, in the dust, in the earth. Many. You've got a beautiful white poodle you want to sleep with. You don't want that poodle to be covered in dust. So, it's why are we having these animals? What are the animals? But anyway, going back to your question. So it's the contact with pure earth. I've seen many owners which doesn't allow their dogs to drink from puddles. That's an error. Allow your dog to drink from a puddle, unless you're seeing, it's full of petrol or oil. But anyway, the animal wouldn't drink it then. Not stupid. They've got instinct. So animals know how to self-regulate and self-medicate with plants. Give them that opportunity. There are so many herbs your dog can eat, and you can boost its immune system, expand the lifespan, prevent cancer. After that blast in Beirut, those animals developing cancer, obviously that was provoked by that trauma. But then I'm curious, if owners which knew what effect would have that trauma on the physical body of that animal, if they managed to counteract it through diet, because there are so many things you can do. Turmeric, basil, rosemary. I don't want to go into that, but a part of the things which you can buy, let's say a basil or plant a basil in your house, and so your dog can smell it and then put it in his bowl. Another thing which I can mention, this can be a little bit controversial, but let's go down that route. It's the communication with animals. It's telepathic communication. And again, on society level, we don't acknowledge telepathy. It happens to humans so often, but it's still not tangible for us. It's strange. It was a coincidence, we call it. But you can actually, and every human being has the capacity of communicating with its animal. We just not taught, we don't remember, and we think it's silly. Well, it's not. And if you develop that skill, it's like stretching. The more you practice, the better you get. The same with telepathy. You can communicate with your animals, and they give you very clear information, what they need, what they like. Please stop doing this. I hate it. And you're doing it with love. So,
we can just call it also non-verbal communication, the way we used to do, or sometimes we do with each other until now through body language.
Yes.
So I believe because the humans have lived in nature and they had to protect themselves also, and they had to adapt to nature. So they had to also to develop this kind of non-verbal communication with animals. So let's not let people think that we're asking superpowers from them.
Oh,
just when you get used to your animal at home, it's a living entity in your house. So you will have to deal with it. You will have to try to understand the needs. And for all the people,
what's more, from my experience as an owner of 4 animals, I would say that, and all of them are rescued, okay, which makes things a little bit more complicated. And, so with each one of them, I had different issues over the years. And I've been trying to address them in different ways, but that non-verbal communication has solved things or has given me a different angle of seeing things that, other techniques didn't. So a behaviorist wasn't able to explain certain behaviors of my dog, while non-verbal communication could. Problem solved, So there is a lot to do.
So for people who thought that they want to watch about certain spaces to construct, certain shapes or textures or colors, they just now know that all they need is nature-based items to put them to understand what their animals like or dislike. But there are things that they will like even though they're not aware of, even though the owner is not aware of. The animal will like it, definitely. And just to be aware of this kind of communication to understand their needs. Because each animal will be different. We cannot just put the standard stereotypes of designs and of configurations for each kind, let's say, or race of animal.
I would, for any animal owner, whatever animal it is, I would say stay open-minded and keep on doing the research. Because on one side, the pharmaceutical companies and the feeding companies which produce food, it's a big market. Those are lobbies, and we so engaged in our own lives and in the speed and in the amount of things which we have to do every day. We don't hold that space for that animal and that research of that life being. It's our companion because we always had dogs and cats or other animals, but we don't realize it's a live being. It's a separate entity, so if you have children, you research about children. If you have a dog, keep on researching on dogs. There are so many things, and don't trust, something blindly. Just try it for yourself. Try it for your animal. It might work. It might not work. But a lot of issues, and that's something interesting, which our animals have, they come from the owner. You're the source. So look into yourself and then analyze your animals. That has been proven in many, many, many illnesses, physical illnesses that the animal has. And it's not the health issue of that animal. It's the health issue of the owner. But because of that connection, that's how it works. The moment you're healthy, your animal starts being healthy.
And this always proves our continuous communication with what's in front of us. Nadia, thank you so much for this interesting conversation.
I'm here to share my experience, knowledge, and learn as well. Thanks.
Thank you again. And
Maria.
Thanks for watching.